Now, joining me to discuss the day is Labor's Shadow Parliamentary Secretary, Stephen Jones, and we hope to be joined soon by Government Parliamentary Secretary, Alan Tudge. Stephen, for the moment, welcome to the program. Bronwyn Bishop told the Parliament that she will be impartial. Do you expect that that will happen?
Bronwyn Bishop has been one of Tony Abbott's most ferocious political warriors in the 43rd Parliament. I congratulate her on becoming the Speaker of the 44th Parliament. Only time will tell whether she is good to that promise, good to the office of ensuring that she makes Parliament operate as it ought in a non-partisan way.
Although when, as you say, she was ferocious in the Parliament, she was serving a different role. Being the Speaker is a different role to the one she had before, isn't it?
True it is that she is serving a different role, but so were Speakers Burke and Speaker Jenkins. And the one thing that they both did to give confidence to the public and the Parliament when they took on the role of speakership was they withdrew themselves from the party room from whence they came, to make it quite clear they weren't engaging in the partisan political discussions of their party room. They were there to serve the Parliament. They were there to act impartially. They were there to ensure that the rules, the standing orders and the Constitution were upheld. I only hope that the new Speaker is able to overcome the burden that she's placed upon herself by continuing to sit within the party room and overcome that burden and ensure that she's able to operate in a non-partisan fashion.
Your Manager of Opposition Business in the House, Tony Burke, referred to her as a evil Harry Potter character, Dolores Umbridge. Whatever you think of the new Speaker's positions and statements in the past, she's not evil, is she?
Oh, I don't think he was calling her evil. I think he was making a witty contrast between the Dumbledores of the 43rd Parliament and you know, the people from the Ministry of Magic. But look, seriously, we wish the new Speaker well, and it is important that we have a good non-partisan arrangement sitting in the Speaker's chair to ensure that the important business of this Parliament gets dealt with.
Now, you were one of the MPs who went from the House of Representatives to the Senate to hear the Governor-General's address. It was, as it always is, a speech written by the government, something of a stump speech for the government. Is that still relevant in this modern day and age?
Look, if you closed your eyes and listened to the Governor-General's speech in the Senate today, you could be forgiven for thinking that with a bit of a change in octave you were listening to Tony Abbott's campaign speech from the campaign launch. No criticism of the Governor-General. It is a convention, but I think it's worthwhile considering whether we revisit some of these conventions. I think it's worthwhile considering whether the Governor-General gives a broader speech on the importance of democracy, on the importance of the role of Parliament within that democracy, as opposed to having to go through, you know, the fiction, the constitutional fiction of delivering an address which is effectively the address of the Prime Minister of the nation.
One final issue before we move on. The first piece of legislation the government will introduce will be the legislation to repeal the carbon tax. Labor MPs, shadow ministers I've spoken to are confident that Labor won't change its position. Are you quite confident that it will not change, that there is no chance, in effect, that this legislation will get through Parliament by the end of this year?
Every one of the Labor MPs and senators who've returned to this Parliament did so on a platform of abolishing the carbon tax and replacing it with an emissions trading scheme. We do that because it's the right policy. Every credible economist and scientist in the country says this policy they've got, their cash for carbon, hand out pollution subsidy to polluters won't work. And if we're serious about addressing climate change, then we need a proper mechanism in place.
What, though, do you think the public wants you to do?
I think the public want us to live up to the policy objectives that we took to the election. You know, it would be ridiculous if I wasn't a member of the ALP and I was sitting here as an independent and I stood on a whole series of platforms to get elected. It would be preposterous for you to say to me that, irrespective of the fact that I didn't form government as an independent, I should give up all of the things that I stood for as a Member of Parliament. Well, I wouldn't if I was an independent. I won't because I'm a member of the Australian Labor Party. I'll continue to stand for the platform that I got elected on.
We might move on now.